and welcome to the IMI Insights podcast, where we bring you expert voices from the IMI faculty. Artificial intelligence is woven into our everyday lives, from our social media apps to apps that manage our health and even our money to search engines. It is everywhere. But behind the scenes, behind this efficiency of using AI, what we don't sometimes realize is that the way our personal data is being collected, analyzed, or even monetized is currently changing. And there is a slight erosion of what privacy and data safety meant in the olden times. And today we are joined by Professor Ruchi Sharma, who is an assistant professor of MIS and Analytics at IMI. And she'll be talking about what it means to safeguard personal data at the time when AI is everywhere. Hello, Professor Ruchi, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So clearly, AI is something that has, made everything more efficient, and there's things are happening faster. There's a lot of things that AI is doing that we don't have to do at the moment. But how do you balance then the safeguarding of personal data with efficiency of AI?
Yes, as you rightly said, when we think of AI, we think of personalization, we think of efficiency, we think of convenience. But on the other hand, there's so much of it which is we are not talking about because we don't know about it. So one of the things that we need to talk about is responsibility. Mm-hmm. See, when we are talking about AI, we need to say that in AI, when we think of AI, we think of innovation, but along with innovation, we should think of responsibility. So innovation and responsibility should go hand in hand. Right. So innovation without responsibility, I would say, is not even progress. So we think that we are developing, we think we are moving ahead with technology, but without a responsible behavior. When I talk about responsibility, I talk about how the data is being collected. So, for example, some data which we don't even know we are giving away, some data which we don't know how it will be used. Suppose I'm giving away my data for something else, but it is being used for a totally different purpose. So these are some of the ethical guidelines that have to come in. So when we talk about usage of AI, we have to understand that responsibility has to be at the core of AI design. So it comes from ethics and human values. So we are talking about artificial intelligence, but humans have to interfere because we are talking about ethics. And currently AI is not talking about ethics at all.
So when we talk about AI, of course, it can sort of capture every micro changes or anything that we are doing, right? Online, anything that we do, AI can detect, and it can sort of understand the patterns that we are working in. And of course, a lot of personal data is being taken to understand and analyze how we sort of operate. So in this kind of a scenario then, where does, data safeguarding come in? Is it just mandates and companies that will be regulating this now?
Not just the companies, of course. It has to come from different perspectives. First one, of course, the organizations who is dealing with the data. Mm-hmm. Another one has to come from the policies and the regulators. So it is coming from the government angle. And another interesting, I would say, thing that I found is the society as well. Because some of the case studies that we have been studying, that sometimes that AI, just amplifies the existing inequalities. That also comes into picture. So it has to be three-way. So it has to be regulators, it has to be organizations, and it has to be society at large. So we cannot put in the responsibility on one shoulder. It has to be a triad, which is working in harmony with each other.
Right. So, of course, it's clear that AI has sort of penetrated every aspect, right? But there are certain sectors which maybe, or at least our personal data in certain cases which may be more vulnerable. For example, health, fintech, even e-commerce. So how do you sort of protect data in this case, especially when the older frameworks are not working?
You were talking about older frameworks. So, when we were talking about the older frameworks, so, very simple ones, like simple yes, no checkbox, or maybe I agree to that. But when I talk about AI, it goes beyond that. It has broken all the rules of consent that we might have. So it, as we were talking about micro behavior analysis. So, it can't capture data like say your pauses, even when how you're pausing or how you're typing a certain thing, or maybe your emotions, everything it can capture. So specifically if I talk about healthcare, when we talk about healthcare, it's about it's very confidential data, it's very critical data, right? So patient may not want to disclose all of that. Even the data that he or she has submitted voluntarily,
right,
they may not want to share it, right? And we are talking about data beyond that the AI can observe apart from what you have shared.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a very tricky area. Talking about fintech, yes, suppose the banks, they are giving away loans. So it's your credit worthiness will be detected by how you are behaving, maybe on online platforms, maybe on other platforms, wherever the data is, wherever the bank is getting their data from.
Yes.
Then third thing you talked about was e-commerce. So e-commerce, suppose it can be very invasive, like so recommendation system is one thing, but sometimes it gets creepy, I would say, like it will be like, okay, I want this, but I don't want you to tell me that I want this, I will get it myself.
Yes.
So sometimes you get that feeling. So I remember this conversation I was having with a friend, like years ago, when AI was not in the picture. So I was having, we were just in the text phase.
Yeah.
So we were just texting and we were just talking about a particular song. Right. And it was a text. Now what happened was I opened YouTube and that same song was there. I felt, like being watched.
Like somebody was watching.
Yeah, somebody was watching and somebody was, listening to our conversation. But at that time, it was, it felt somewhere. But today, it doesn't feel like that.
It feels normal.
It feels normal because we have accepted that. And as we are talking, we have been accepting many more things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the conversation I was talking about maybe from like 10 years ago. So at that time it felt invasive. Now it doesn't. As I talk, it doesn't feel invasive. So, but and that is what is there. Like with all these platforms, they will slightly, like as I said, as we are talking, they're creeping into our systems, in our daily lives, being a part of everything we never thought of they'll be.
Right. So it's almost like they know us better than we know ourselves.
Not almost. It is.
It is.
Yes.
So, of course, privacy is a huge factor. But and it's an interesting thing that you mentioned in your article as well, that there are times when AI can also be very biased in its framework. Mm-hmm. And you give a very good example of, a certain race that was completely ignored, or there was a different sort of data that they had analyzed in a racial manner. So how does that impact, and what should then creators keep in mind while making these frameworks, especially in case of biases?
I think the case that you're mentioning is about the US healthcare algorithm bias. Yes. So I would like to talk about that first to bring in the context here. So what happened was in 2019, so there was an algorithm that was devised by an organization, and many of the health sectors were using it. So this algorithm actually was around, the objective was to find out the healthcare needs of the patients, like who needs it more than the other, basically. So one of the parameters that they were using in order to have this, in order to predict this, was healthcare cost that one is incurring. Mm-hmm. Suppose somebody is incurring greater cost, like suppose A is spending more than B on healthcare. So they assumed that A might be in more need, right? But when this particular case, it shows a bias towards the black people, and it was favoring white people rather than black people. But if you understand the social structure of the Western countries at that particular time, the social structure was that the black people were not actually spending more on healthcare because they were healthier. It was more about access. It was more about discrimination. It was more about sometimes demographics or location as well. So there were different layers to it. So whenever somebody in this domain, they fail to understand the entire intent or the social structure or maybe the exact requirement of the algorithm, it can be biased. And as from this particular case, it was actually observed that it is flawlessly, it was amplifying the inequalities that we have in our society.
Okay. So sort of course, it's the data that is available. They analyze it in one way. So there is then a risk of biased sort of understanding of what AI does. So from a creator's point of view now, is it just something that can make that particular app or that particular company be like at a risk of, say, having a bad reputation? Or is it more than that? Is it legal risks, financial risks? Is there some rules and policies that need to be implemented in this?
So it's actually all the three. You talked about reputation, legal and financial, right? Yes. So it's actually all the three. First one is definitely reputational, and then we have certain like laws in place, but laws are actually playing a catch-up kind of a thing, because when something happens, then a law comes up. Something goes wrong, then a law comes up. So we have laws in place. So there are certain repercussions, legal repercussions, but sometimes they're not really in proportion to the damage that is there. And then financial, of course, and most of the things that are happening, these are bigger organizations. So financially, yes, they will face a loss, but they are accommodating that really well.
Right. So another interesting thing that you highlight in your article is shadow profiles. So can you enlighten us a little bit more on that and how it affects businesses and all of these things?
So shadow profile is something that comes into light. There was a scandal. So in 2016, that was Cambridge Analytica scandal. So what happened was that from the profiles of around 270,000 people, 87 million profiles were created.
Okay.
How it happened was, for example, I'm not on Facebook, right? Or maybe any platform owned by Meta, right? But one of my friends is. Right. So suppose, when he or she is having that application in their phone, so they'll have the contact list as well. So they have provided those permissions, like contact list is there, my email is there, right? So with my email, there might be a small picture as well, right? And that friend of mine may have more pictures in the gallery with me. So what that can do, that AI can make sense of all of that. That my name is there, my email is there, and then they have a picture of me. They can map it to all the other pictures, so they have a secret profile about me. I'm not even signed up for that. I'm not even concerned about that platform. I don't even know that. Sometimes I don't even know that platform exists, maybe. But they have a secret file about me with with information that is alarmingly accurate. So nobody would like that. So that is shadow profiling. And when I say, it's what happened in this particular case, so it was used during presidential elections in US.
Right.
Yeah. So they actually wanted to create psychological profiles of the people in order to understand the voting patterns or behaviors. So political campaigns, we all know how they can be used. So it is scary. Yes.
Yes. It's definitely very big sort of, into our personal lives. It's definitely coming in without our permission, and it's definitely scary if it's trying to understand things that we maybe don't want to share with others.
True.
So, when it comes to companies that are consumer facing, client facing, and they have these shadow profiles, so this also helps them to create hyper personalization. So is it a good thing as a consumer to have a company be able to create something that is hyper personalized for you? Or is it more of, say, invasion of privacy?
It's actually both. It depends on where they are drawing that line. So hyper personalization, it can feel like, somebody knows me, and, it can feel like convenience. It can feel like, somebody is recommending the exact same thing that I want. So it can, it can feel magical, I would say. But on the other hand, if we can understand that where it is coming from, then it will feel invasive, right? So it is actually both. So if we know, if you're aware, then it will be invasive. If you're not aware, it might feel very magical.
Right. So another thing is, of course, biometrics that you talk about, especially for tech entrepreneurs. So, when you talk about biometrics, is it just, is it just invasion of privacy? How do you use it? Or is it something, should leadership, should, political parties of the government draw lines and have policies around using biometrics as well, especially the data that we get from biometrics?
Absolutely, there should be lines. We are having this conversation, I wrote suddenly, but there have to be some lines, because we are moving in a direction at a very fast pace. So when we talk about specifically about biometric data, it is actually the most personal information that we have, right? And suppose it is, in the starting, it has been used for security, it has been used for access control. So that is okay. Like, in my personal opinion, that is okay. But if we go beyond that, for example, we are, on, the objective that we are defining is that we want to maybe gauge productivity, maybe gauge, stress management of the employee, maybe. So it gets personal. It's invasion of privacy in that sense. Like, it should be off limits. So, just because we can do it, we should not do it. Just because technology available, you use it, not really required. So it all comes down to ethics and responsible behavior in that sense. So, everybody has their bad days. Maybe I'm having a bad day at work, and somebody, looking right at me and using that as a data point. I don't want that. I'm sure you will not want that as well. So again, it comes down to drawing very, very clear lines. And I hope it happens.
So, you, of course, because taking this topic forward, you mentioned about acts that Europe has introduced, India has introduced certain acts. So do you think companies can self-regulate, or is it inevitable that the governments have to step in and set clear boundaries?
Government have to step in, because we know businesses are working for profits, and profit incentives are usually in conflict with the ethics, right? So, because they will not self-regulate. Like, some of the organizations might, but we cannot leave it there. So it will be basically a combination of everything. So, government has to put in some regulations, then it has to be imbibed in the work culture, it has to be, independent audit should be there. So there will be a lot of things that will go into this structure. No one thing can, definitely self-regulation cannot.
Yeah. So, of course, regulation is definitely important. And you mentioned 5 approaches that can be adopted. But currently in India, what do you think is the most urgent that needs to be adopted out of these 5 that you've sort of mentioned?
I would say digital literacy. Because as we're talking, like, I was talking about the awareness earlier. So if I do not know what can go wrong, I am not, aware about the repercussions that might happen, I will happily give away all my data. So people should be aware what data they're giving and what could be the possible repercussions for that. So if the people are aware of that, I think, that puts a pressure on the organizations, governments, all the regulatory bodies, because they don't know, aware Janta is basically someone, everybody is scared of. So they should be scared of that, because awareness is something that is irreplaceable. So if I know about something, I'll talk about it. If you imagine, all the people know about something, they'll talk about it, and something has to be done about it. So I think digital literacy.
So, as someone, of course, you've taught about it and you're very interested in MIS, analytics and all of this. And you mentioned in your article, which I found really interesting to read, is that AI knows too much. And this is a call to action right now, right? So in this kind of a scenario, then what kind of business leaders do you see thriving? People who can actually sort of maybe self-regulate and maintain these boundaries. How do they go about it then? Because they have the information. So how do they sort of navigate this, balance this invasion to privacy, and then even thrive?
I would say we need technology, but we need ethics as well. So somebody who can look in any leadership role, if they can balance, they know how to rightfully use the technology, but they have an ethical vision. Because, every action will be coming from the vision part. Right? So if it will start with an ethical vision, then based on that ethical vision, they will decide whether to take this action or not to take this action. So technology has to be there. It will go hand in hand. But it should primarily come from a place where, privacy is a human right.
Right.
Not a negotiable feature. Like, everybody can play around. So if somebody with that vision is there, I think those people in any leadership role are going to thrive.
So this is really interesting. I mean, I read your article and we've had this conversation. So clearly, I think one clear takeaway from this is there has to be a balance between having access to this data and how you use it, and of course making sure that you're not sort of invading people's privacy without their consent.
True. So consent is the primary thing here, because we don't know what is being shared. So if we are agreeing to, and we are aware, like I say I'm taking your consent and that person is not even aware about it, so that is not consent.
Yeah.
So if the people are aware and they are, with that awareness, they are giving away that consent, then it's fine. But that is sadly not happening right now.
Okay, so this has been really interesting. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. It was a lovely conversation. Thank you so much.